Alright, so let's go ahead and set up our configuration. So I'm going to head over to our VS Code. And within our VS Code, I'm going to create another package that's going to contain our configuration. So I'm going to come within our API folder, and then I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder, I'm actually going to call this folder the config folder. And within our config folder, we're going to go ahead and also put a Django init file. So I'll just come and say init. So it's going to be init.py. Then within our init.py, I'm going to create a file. So I'm going to call this file config.py. So within our config.py file, we're going to go ahead and write classes that are going to define our configurations for the various instances in which we'll have our application. So I'm going to come right here. The first thing I'm going to do is to import our OS, and we're going to use our OS in a second. So I'll first create our class. So I'm going to create a class which I'm going to call config. So within our config, I'm going to set up our secret key and other variables as well. So the first variable I'll create is going to be our secret key, and this is going to be a secret file. So I'm going to be using Python decouple to manage my environment variables as well as our secrets. For example, database, passwords, and so on, and other secret things that we're going to use in this project. So what I'll do is go to our terminal, and then I'll come and say that pip. So I'm going to install Python decouple that I'm going to use to actually write my environment variables. So I'm going to say pip install, and then I'll say Python decouple. So this will go ahead and install our Python decouple. So our Python decouple has been installed. So I'll go ahead and also freeze it to our requirements.txt file. So I'll say freeze to requirements.txt, and that will add it to our requirements.txt. Now after we've done this, then let's go ahead and create our config. So right after here, after installing my Python decouple, then the next thing I'm going to do is to use the config variable to basically create our configurations. I'm going to first create our env file. So I'm going to come here and say .env. This is the file in which we're going to write our environment variable. So I'm going to create our secret key. I'm going to say secret key, and then I specify our secret key. So I'll open our Python terminal within VS Code. So I'm going to just open Python, and then say I'm going to import the secrets. So I'm going to import secrets, and then I'm going to basically generate a random hexadecimal string that we shall use as our secret key. So I'll say secrets dot token hex, and then this will generate this. So I'm going to basically copy it. So I'm going to come and copy it and then paste it within our .env file. So I'll close that. Now we are done creating our secret key. So I'll come within our config.py, and then I'll basically import the config. So I'll come and say from decouple. So I'm going to say from decouple, import our config, and then I'll go ahead and set our secret key to be the value of our environment variable for the secret key. So I'll come and say config, and then this is going to take in the secret key value. And then in presence of that secret key within our .env, we're just going to have the word secret as our secret key. So this should be kept as secret as possible in case we want security for our application. So right after doing that, then I'm going to also go ahead and create other variables that we're going to use, other instances of our API that we're going to use. So I'll first start with the development config. So I'm going to call this the dev config. So this is going to be our dev config. And then this is going to inherit from config, meaning it will take in the different class variables that we define for the config. Now I'll go ahead and also be able to set some variables in here. So I'm going to set debug, and debug is also going to be a secret. So I'll say config, and then I'll set up a variable called debug. Now this one, I'm going to basically state that it's going to be cast to a boolean. For example, if we are to get the value of the secret key, we shall get it as a string. But in this case, we want to get our value as a boolean. So I'll come and say cast is going to be equal to bool, meaning that we are to get our debug value and then set it to a boolean. So I'll come within our .env file, and then the next variable I'm going to basically specify is going to be a debug. So I'll say debug, and in development we shall just leave it to true, but we shall change it as we go on. So I'll come right here within our config.py, and then basically it's going to read our value as true and then set it to a boolean. So one thing I'm also going to do is to set up a class. So I'm going to call this class test config. So I'll call this class test config, and then it's going to also inherit from config. So I'll pass this for now because I'm not going to be using this. So I'll also create the class for the production config. So I'll just basically call this the prod config. And then this is going to inherit from our config. So I'll pass it for now as well. Now, after creating this, then the next thing is going to be to hook this onto our main application. So the first thing I'm going to do is to be able to create a dictionary that's going to enable us to easily access these classes from our application factory. So I'll just come right here and create a simple dictionary that I'm going to call a config dict. So this is going to be a dictionary containing our config classes. So I'm going to set it with keys. So I'm going to set a key such as def, and then it's going to have a def config class, and then I also set up prod, which is going to be for our production. So in this case, we're going to have our prod config as our class, and then I'm also going to set up our test. So I'm going to set test, and then this is going to be having our test config. So I'll say test config. Now, right after doing this, then what I'm going to go ahead and do is to use this config dictionary within our main init.py file. So I'll come to our main init.py file, and I'll have to first import our config dictionary that we've created right here. So I'm going to come right here, and what I'll do is to set from .config. So in this case, it's going to be .config, and I'll have to import our config dictionary. So right after importing our config dictionary, then I'll come right here and then give our application factory an argument. So in this case, I'm going to give it an argument. So I'll actually give it a parameter, which is going to be the config. So if it takes in that config, then we shall have to configure our Flask API using that config. So in this case, by default, we're going to have our config as config dict, and then we shall specify def, meaning that we're going to have our API with the default configurations as those for development. So if I go ahead and check our config.py, so the value for dev is the one for our development config. So our API will run as though it's in development. Now after doing that, then what I'm going to do is to go back here, and then I'll come and basically hook that configuration onto our app instance. So I'll come right here, and then I'll say app.config. So this is going to be app.config, then from object. So I'll specify that it's going to be from an object. Then we'll specify an object of any type. So in this case, we're going to specify the type. So I'll just say the type of the config we've passed in. So in this case, it's going to be the config that we pass in as a parameter right here. So hoping that everything is fine, I'm going to go ahead and run our server again. So I'll head over to the terminal. So in this case, if I run fast run, it's going to run our API. But then since we're running it in a production environment, then the bug is going to be off. Now to simplify our work, what I'm going to do is create a simple script that shall be running. I'm going to call this run server.py. So I'm going to stop our server and then head over to our pod. So within our pod, I'm going to create a new script, and this script is going to be responsible for running our project. So I'm going to come right here and create that file. So I'm going to create a new file that's going to be called run server.py. So within run server.py, we're going to create our instance of our call of the create app function that we've specified within our init file. So I'm just going to come right here, and what I'll do is to say from our API package, I'm going to go ahead and import our create app function. So when I import our create app function, I'll go ahead and create a call to that create app function, and then after creating that call to this API function, we're going to run our app based on this create app function. So I'm also going to import our config. So what I'll do is to say from api.config, then we're going to, actually it's going to be .config, then we're going to import our config bit. I'll actually come and just say don't do this since we have Git as a parameter specified within our function. So I'll just come and pass in our config. So I'll just come here. And what I'll do is to basically, so if I don't run it with a config, then it will default to the config of development, which you want since we're running our application in development. But as we go to deployment, we're going to basically have this running with production configurations. So I'm going to leave it at that. And what I'll do is come and say if name is equal to, in this case it's going to be danda name. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. So I'll say app.run. So when I save this, I'm going to go to our terminal right here. And what I'll do is to say, so in ls, you see our server.py is located within the same project folder. Then I'll come and say python and then run server.py. This is going to go ahead and run our server, but in this case, it will run it with debug as on. So when I go to localhost 5000, Microsoft Edge is going to open. Now we see that Flask RestX is actually generating the Swagger documentation for us. So now we have our /endpoint. But in this case, you see that we are making a mistake. We're having our /endpoint because we basically specified our root endpoint to be slash on our orders. So what I'll do in this case is to go ahead and fix that. So I'll just come right in our code, and within our Danda API, I'll just have to remove the path on our API. So I'll just have to remove this. And after removing this, so when you go back to our browser, when I refresh, we now see that our orders are now a single route. So when I try this out, I'm going to try it out, and when I say try out, when I execute this, we see that hello order is being returned to us. So the same thing is going to happen to our auth. So I'm going to clear, and when I clear this, when I come right here to our authentication namespace, I'm going to run this, and when I run this, I'm going to say try it out and execute. Now we shall see hello auth being returned to us.